Okay, I have to tell you, calling this edition of Coffee and Headlines the oopsie edition was an immediate and automatic way to jinx the performance and the transmission and the overall experience. So I am so sorry about that. We are on indeed. We can hear the music, says Bill, and take two, says Mark, and Paul says that looks better. This time with feeling, well, we're certainly going to try to do that with feeling today. Good morning, everyone, and I'm sorry we had a false start earlier on today. These things happen, but I suppose it is all part of the context of the news today, which have to do with oopsie mistakes that the government has. Uh, well, I'll just get to that as soon as I make some time for everybody to discover that we're live here and not in the other broadcast. Um, as you know, oh, actually, Lynn Rogers makes an interesting comment. We had a good time waiting for you, and that's very funny because indeed I was trying to read some of your comments, and yes, Paul, I jinxed myself, but here we are. You're all slowly but surely finding the broadcast, which is great. As always, I'm so appreciative of your patience and your company. This is Coffee and Headlines, the Away from Home Saturday edition. I asked for air conditioning, and my friend Paul invited me to spend the night at Hotel Mercurio. So I am sitting here. Light is not great, but your company makes everything brighter and wonderful. Um, Today, um, oh, Cindy, trust me, I got to see some of the comments that you guys were exchanging while we were trying to get while I was trying to get the show started. Um, but um, um, but no, I was not being a diva. I promise I wasn't. We were just trying to deal with circumstances here. Anyhow, I don't want to take more of your time than we have to. It's always great to see you, and it's always great to share news with you. Today's news are a mixed bag of all kinds of things going on that have to do with the increased arrival of tourists in Puerto Vallarta. They have to do with the way some decisions are being made lately and other interesting things. So let us just quickly jump into the news by clicking the news transition. Here we go. Okay, so we start with Vallarta en línea. Let me switch over to the news view so that I can actually see what you're so I can explain what you're looking at. And Vallarta en línea tells us that there is, Vallarta en línea tells us that the government did not make any official notifications over the fact that bars were going to open. So it is a really interesting headline simply because, as you know, bars and casinos and movie theaters pretty much decided that they could open, and that nobody showed anything in writing as far as the government is concerned. No special bulletins were emitted by the government. So what this article claims to explain is that the municipality of Jalisco decided that Bars that have all the paperwork in check and are follow the guidelines are going to be able to open after they get inspected, and that we can expect that the entire destination will be able to open bars within the next 15 days. But of course, we have not seen any kind of official notification from the city government or from the state government. In other words, nothing has been said in writing. The next headline that I have for you has to do with more tourism arriving in Puerto Vallarta. According to Vallarta Opina, this would be tourism arriving from Guadalajara. Of course, the nice folks in Guadalajara heard that we have reopened our bars, and of course, all the Guadalajara weekenders decided, well, if there are bars and they are open, we might as well go to Puerto Vallarta over the weekend. I find this headline fascinating, though, because bars just opened supposedly on Thursday, which is 2 days ago, and 2 days later, the paper indicates that there's an increase in tourism. So we don't know exactly how they measure that, if this only happened 2 days ago, but I thought I would share it with you so we could chuckle together about it. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, there's been all this movement having to do with the fact that casinos and movie theaters can open, and the Guadalajara University spoke against this, stating that it is still premature to be able to open movie theaters because the numbers for the pandemic are still not in a place where they should be. El Heraldo de Mexico reports that Mexican beaches are pretty much up to capacity. People are starting to take their vacation time seriously. And of course, the article also mentions that hotels are not expected or allowed to go over there now. 30% allowed occupancy. I don't know if you knew that, Paul, but you can have 30% hotel guests now. I don't know if that is equivalent to one person and a half more, or maybe three guests and one torso. We don't know. But lo and behold, it is interesting to see that, everybody wants to go on vacation, and I understand the big problem or the big question is when you go on vacation, how exactly do you behave? But we've talked about this before. We also read through Contralinea that the connectivity, the airline connectivity to Puerto Vallarta has increased. We now have, again, more than 100 weekly flights with 11 different airlines. These airlines include Interjet, Volaris, Aeromar, Viva, Airbus, TAR, Magni Charters, and international or U.S. airlines include American Airlines, Alaska, Delta, and United. So if you're thinking of planning a trip to Puerto Vallarta, you have now a larger number of options. Speaking of thinking of traveling to Puerto Vallarta, this headline made me chuckle because Contralinea says in their headline that the security, the alert, the travel alert that was emitted by the United States government a couple of days ago that said that you couldn't travel to Mexico or shouldn't travel to Mexico, excluded Puerto Vallarta and Riviera Nayarit. And I thought to myself, well, isn't that convenient that a Puerto Vallarta-based news outlet would say that Puerto Vallarta is excluded from this travel advisory? I thought, well, that looks shady. I'm going to learn a little bit more about all this business of advisories. So what I did is I went into the United States travel advisory page, and I went and looked at the article. And indeed, the article goes down to break down every single state. And it says that U.S. Government employees can travel to Puerto Vallarta and Riviera Nayarit, but it doesn't say the same thing about just the regular people. So this headline is misleading, but it's interesting to see how the US government reports their information. Of course, they recommend that one visits the um, level 3 notice due to COVID-19, and I went into that webpage, and and this is really awesome because the United States government is kind enough to tell you what you should do to protect yourself while you're visiting Mexico. Travelers, pay attention. It's the same guidelines that we know and that we have. Stay at least 2 arms length away from anybody, wear a mask, wash your hands, avoid contact with anyone who is sick, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, and do not travel if you are sick. So, dear friends from the United States, your own government is giving you guidelines that apply down here, so it makes me wonder, why do we see you walking around our city without wearing a face mask? Interesting question to think about. Now, before we go on to the oopsie daisy section of the broadcast, I want to very quickly take a look at your comments to see if there are any questions. As always, we appreciate it when you put the letter Q before a question so that we can get to it either during the broadcast or immediately after the broadcast. Um, Logan says this journey with Governor Alfaro has been a ride. Yes, we were very impressed with him, and now we don't know what to do. All I can think of, Logan, is I think the governor and the president and world leaders all around the planet must be as tired and frustrated and just not knowing exactly how to go about this as anybody else. This is not meant to justify the governor, but you know, it is what it is. Um, and yes, they should also warn people not to travel there as well due to crime. That sounds like something that needs to be done uh, for those people that are going to travel to the United States. But that's a different story. Our government doesn't do those kinds of travel advisories, as you well know. Now, let me move into the blunder section of our broadcast because this is just absolutely funny. It's been a rough ride for visitmexico.com, the official website that promotes traveling through Mexico. We know that yesterday they released this very strange promotional video for the city of Acapulco that depicted this atmosphere of go to Acapulco, you can break all the rules, you can do whatever you want, and um, um, it pictured, just young people of a certain higher class type of environment having a good time. So a lot of people criticized this campaign, which came from visitmexico.com. What you don't know is, because we didn't even get to it at the time, I thought, well, this is not going to be something that is going to be all that important. But almost 2 weeks ago, in fact, 2 weeks ago, if you went into visitmexico.com, you would have run into this little notice. Suspension for lack of payment. No, we were not hacked. It's lack of payment. And then it says carta abierta, which means open letter. And what is this about? Well, this is something that should actually be a warning for anybody that is conducting business with websites and people that design websites for you. The bottom line is the company that manages the official travel website for our country changed hands, or some employees went and formed their own company, such that nobody seemed to have paid attention to the fact that the passwords for the domains were not secured properly, such that when there was a dispute of payment between one company and the other, one of the companies decided to just give the other company the finger and say, well, you don't pay us. We are going to boycott and hijack the website for Mexico's travel information. Um, this is an important thing to keep in mind as people that have businesses and have your own websites and so forth and so on. If you hire a company to manage and build and administer your website, it is incredibly important that you always know your login and passwords, because if your website domain, your www.mybusiness.com or whatever it's called, if that expires or access to your website files is interrupted, if you don't have access to that website, if you don't have the keys to the website, it becomes very difficult to get in there. So 2 weeks ago, again, the Mexico Visit Mexico website showed this charming message to the entire world for about 5 days. It was over the weekend. It was suspended like on a Thursday, and I remember I checked it on the following Monday or Tuesday, and it was still down. And of course, when you pushed any of these four buttons, what this had was an authentic Mexican telenovela about who owed money to whom and so forth and so on. Actually, all quite embarrassing. So this happened, and then we had the video about Acapulco that I showed you. And yesterday, to make it even more embarrassing, the Mexico travel website apparently is using Google Translator for their English version, such that Google Translator or somebody with a very twisted sense of humor decided to change the names of our states and translate them to English. Names of states and cities. For example, the state of Guerrero became Warrior. Um, um, the city of Tulum became Jumpsuit. The state where I was born became New Lion, which is Nuevo León. The state of Hidalgo became Noble. And this was, it depends on who you ask, this was either somebody with a bad sense of humor, or the people that are hijacking the website are still trying to damaging or trying to get paid. I don't know. But this apparently got a lot of flack from governors, presidents, ex-presidents, and so forth and so on. Of course, now, if you go and visit the website this morning, it says that the new site is coming soon. So for better or for worse, all the promotion, the tourist-related promotion um, for the country is now on standby because we don't have a website. And I see that Logan wants to visit Jumpsuit. Well, if you want to go to Jumpsuit, Logan, I think I'd like to go to Jumpsuit with you. Uh, Oopsie. This is the Oopsie edition of Coffee and Headlines. And the next Oopsie is so very, very funny. And it actually deserves um, a mini Spanish lesson. And I'm going to be able to do that by switching over to here. This is a twit. No, a twit. Yeah, T-U-I-T, a twit. Is there a difference in pronunciation between twit as in Twitter and twit as in you are a twit? I don't know. I'm going to have to find somebody that can explain that to me. In the meantime, the Secretary of Culture emitted a twit that just made everybody laugh and roll their eyes, and I need to explain that by switching over to this screen. Consider this object that I'm showing you here. I know it's a banana, but you know what it looks like, right? Okay, so there are many words for this object in English and Spanish, in many languages. One of the most offensive words in Spanish for that object is the one on the screen, and it reads like this: verga. Now, verga is a filthy word. It's not a word that you would want to use at the dinner table. And it's a word that, if you're in the heat of the moment, if you catch my drift, can be rather arousing. But this is not a nice word to be using. There are other meanings of the word other than penis, but we're not going to get into those right now. This word, of course, can be, in Spanish, we attach the suffixes ita or ota, whether the object is big or small. So a verguita would be a teeny weeny peeny, and a vergota would be, oh my God, how on earth am I going to park that in the driveway kind of thing, okay? Now, If you are surrounded by them, if there's more than one and you're surrounded by them, then you just add an S to the end and you can have like a bunch of itty bitty peenies, verguitas, or you can be surrounded by monster trucks, vergotas. Now, take vergotas, and I love your examples. Yes, we have to have a whole day dedicated to this lovely word because there's all kinds of things we can do with it. But not today. We're going to save that for Sunday Fun Day, maybe even tomorrow. And Edgar Sanchez shares a comment that goes to where I'm going. If you take the word vergotas, which would be many monster trucks, and you put a space between ver and gotas, you end up with a translation that means sea drops. And I'm going somewhere with this, trust me. Sea drops. Ver gotas means to see drops. It could be raindrops. Um, it could be the faucet leaking. But once you decide that you're going to go ver gotas, you are seeing drops. Now, what happened with the Secretary of Culture is that let me switch over to Secretary of Culture screen. It's here on the headlines. There it is. See, what happened here is they tweeted this information about a kids event called Gotas, and they wrote, Te invitamos a ver gotas. 10 micropoems accompanied by the sound of flute, so forth and so on. And just the fact that the Secretary of Culture in Mexico did not think about the consequence of putting those two words together just brought laughs from all kinds of people and comments. And of course, it became a trending thing. If you ask me, I would have written, Te invitamos a disfrutar de gotas. We invite you to enjoy gotas, which would be a very easy fix for this very innocent oopsie situation. But of course, this didn't happen. And and that's it. I mean, that was actually silly, funny, ridiculous, and gives us something to laugh about. And all of a sudden, I don't know if I'm still in the serious headlines or if I have inadvertently switched over to the casual ones. Let me see, where are we? Oh, there's more stuff coming up. So let me actually now make the switch to the last few headlines that I have, and those are definitely leisurely related. I am so glad that you guys got a laugh about this because it's very funny. Sometimes I find myself thinking, are these English speaking friends that I have going to understand these Spanish jokes? And I'm so very glad that you're reacting favorably. Um, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I'm getting a lot of lessons about how to say Twitter and twit and all that stuff. So I'm going to hope that when we get together in person, we are going to actually pronounce all these words together. Essential Spanish, as far as I'm concerned, says Paul. First laugh of the day, then we are accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish. David says, yep, that's the way to go. Use a news program to talk about big penises. Um, um, oh, actually, David is not agreeing with what I'm doing. He doesn't think that I should be speaking about penises in my news program. That I'm not doing a good job, and that I should be doing this for in another scheduled program during the evening. Well, the good news, David, is that I don't do what I do for your approval or anybody else's. So I'm going to continue to talk about whatever I want, and continue to hope that people will continue to tune in. With that said, let us switch over to the leisure. It's time for carrot weather. Right now it is 28 degrees. It feels like 35 degrees Celsius, 82 Fahrenheit. Wind is at, it's not very windy. We have a 14% chance of rain. And boy, did it rain last night. A lot of us enjoyed that very much. The forecast for today tells us that it's going to rain. Um, until morning, starting again in the evening. So it rained overnight, apparently. We're going to have more rain later on today. Um, then on Sunday, tomorrow, we're going to have rain and humid throughout the day. And then on Monday, we're going to have rain in the morning and afternoon. So this is a good thing. We want the rain because it keeps us cool and um, and that of course takes care of the weather. And now, let me go back to a couple of last minute leisurely headlines. Let's get past the Gotas business. And I want to tell you about Ticketmaster and Ocesa. Ticketmaster, of course, you know what it is. And Ocesa is the Mexican company. It's the big conglomerate that controls what is scheduled on theaters, live performances on theaters. And now Ticketmaster and Ocesa have joined forces to develop a streaming platform that will present virtual concerts. And these concerts are going to feature Mexican artists along with international artists of many kinds. This is a good announcement because, according to the article, this new system that they've developed will allow you to be sitting at home and enjoy these performances, and you're going to actually be able to switch from one camera to another, so you can have like a full stage shot, and then if you want to switch over to a close-up shot, you're going to be able to do that. We know that this is going to be launched in the last days of August, so we will be keeping an eye on these broadcasts to make sure that we know what they are and whether the pricing of the tickets is affordable or not. And the last headline that I have to share for you today, if you were late for the news about Ellen DeGeneres, our good friends at Vox have come up with one of their wonderful explaining articles that gives you the whole big story of how Ellen DeGeneres' facade of kindness crumbled. Um, it's interesting to read, and it's a sad situation for Ellen DeGeneres, but it is what it is. Let me take a quick look at your last minute comments. Let me take a look. Um, Fernando supports my remarks in response to David Huerta. David Huerta, I think there's good medication uh, you may want to consider. Rick asks, will you share the COVID-19 statistics? I don't know what statistics you're referring to. There's many. Um, and for that matter, we don't worry too much about statistics here, Rick, because we are mindful of the fact that regardless of the numbers, we know what we need to do to stay safe and to keep our loved ones and people around us safe. So it is Saturday. We expect that the governor of Jalisco will give us statistics for the state tomorrow, as he usually does, and we will be discussing those statistics on Monday, as we usually do. Um, let's see, let's see, let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, oh, you guys are too funny. Um, you just are. Biden 2020. That sounds like a bad name for a movie. Um, but because it doesn't have much to do with Puerto Vallarta, I'm not going to pay much attention. Now, actually, I know what you're talking about, David, but it's somewhere else's elections. There's plenty of sources of information to see what's going on with that, and because we talk about things that are related to Puerto Vallarta, we don't really get into those kinds of news very intimately. Um, I didn't mean to click on that. Sorry, Audrey. I think Audrey is speechless. I thought this was really funny. Thank you, David. That was very funny. Um, Stephen Davidson also asks, I'm from the US. If I move to PV, can I get a job legally? The answer is, I suppose so. I don't know what the logistics are for that. Um, but I suppose that you can. I'm sure that you wouldn't be the first person to do that. For that matter, I know that there's a lot of people that are working here from afar. There are a lot of people that work for U.S. companies without a problem. In terms of the legalities of moving here and getting a job legally, David, I'm afraid I don't have a specific answer for you. Our broadcast is more directed to people that are already living here, and but I'm sure that somebody would have an answer for you, maybe the immigration offices in the consulate or embassy wherever you are. Let's see. Um, oh, thank you very much. We certainly try to have fun every day and every single day. And of course, Terry says the mimosa is looking better. That gives me an idea. Maybe I should have a mimosa right after this. And I think we've gotten through the. Oh, here we go. Here's an answer for you, Stephen. I believe Terry's answer is directed to you. There are steps to go through, but people to help with the process as well. This is true. There are a lot of people that are working in Mexico to help people from other countries have a better life here. I'm talking about lawyers and specialists and so forth and so on. So I am sure that you will be able to find answers to your question once you decide that you're actually going to go ahead with your move. And this brings us to the end of today's broadcast. I sure hope that you've had a good time, and I apologize again for the fact that we had a bumpy start. Again, I announced that this was going to be the oopsie edition of Coffee and Headlines, and it was. Tomorrow is Sunday Fun Day, and you've inspired me with all kinds of things. We may delve deeper at the word verga and think about other ways in which you can use it, not at the dinner table, of course. And we will do this despite the fact that we're going to broadcast tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning as usual. I also have a couple of other Mexican words and phrases that I want to share with you tomorrow, but that's what it's going to be. But for those of you that are joining us for the first time, by the way, um, tomorrow is Sunday, and Sunday is Sunday Fun Day. We don't talk about the news. All we do is act in a juvenile way and laugh and try to forget a little bit about all these things that are burdening us during the rest of the week. So that's all I have for you today. For the rest of the day, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, stay kind, and if you make a mistake, just go oops and live through it and smile. I hope you have a superb day, and I'm going to cue the outro right now. Be well.